Hi, I'm Lauren. I'm from the Harding House Bed and Breakfast in Cambridge, and I'm going to show you how to make a wonderful brunch recipe called Stuffed Croissant French Toast. So we're going to start out with our croissants, and the great thing about this recipe is that the croissants can be a day or two old before you use them. I like to use two different kinds of croissants. One is a plain, and then the other one is an almond croissant, which has got powdered sugar on it, and then in the inside you've got almond filling, which I'm going to scrape out. Actually, I've already scraped out, but you'll see that in a few minutes. So we start out by lining our baking pan. I use silicone baking pans for this because it saves me the very painful step of greasing and powdering the pan. All right, so we start out by filling the baking pan with the croissants, and you're going to slice them open. With the almond croissants, like I said, you're going to pull out the almond filling and set that aside for later. And you want to mix, if you're going to use two pans like I'm using, or you can use a larger pan, but with two pans you want to make sure you get an almond croissant in each pan. So we'll go for that. And then you just sort of piece it together like a puzzle. On the recipe, I believe I offered you 4 croissants, but I like to cheat and have an extra one on hand to fill in the spaces. So you can see the pan is almost full, but you want to just make it really close together and squish it in. So I take my extra croissant and I just peel off the pieces and fill in the holes. So now we've got the pans are done. We've got the croissants on the bottom, so that's the lining. And now I'm going to stuff these croissants with a filling. Okay, so here we are ready to make our filling. And the filling consists of a couple of things, which of course your guests are going to think these are very fancy things that you've made, but you and I are going to know the true secret here, which is that you bought them at the grocery store. All right, guests for our hotel, they don't know that, so please don't tell them. So what I've done is I've measured out 3/4 cups of the orange marmalade and 1/4 cup of the apricot preserve. And the apricot some people are overwhelmed by orange marmalade, so the apricot gives it a nice balance and also gives it a nice heavy weight. And to that we're going to add some orange juice. This is 1/4 cup of orange juice. And all that does is it gives it fluidity so that it's not too thick and gummy in order to pour onto the croissants. Now, if you remember from earlier, we scraped out the filling, the almond filling from the croissants. And there really isn't anything quite like this on earth. It's just like almond and paste and sugar, and it's gooey and good. So we want to make good use of this. So half of it is going to go in here. It's just about a teaspoonful, a heaping teaspoonful. And because it is so pasty, it tends to clump up, but that's okay. So once you get that in, you're going to set it aside and whip it up real good. Okay. So now you've got this kind of a soupy thing with big chunks of apricots in it, and that's just the way you want it. This we pour over the croissants. Nice and thick, but we also want to leave just a little bit of it for the end. So you can see I've left probably, this is about 1/4 cup of it that's left here. And it's just going to be a drizzle for the tops at the end. So now we're back and we're almost ready to put the tops on our croissants and change them over from croissants into French toast. But before we do that, we need to make the egg mixture. So let's start with our cream. You can use heavy cream or half and half. And I prefer to use heavy cream because it's got more fat in it and everything is better with more fat in it, right? So we're going to pour that in. And then next we're going to add 2½ eggs. And when I show people this recipe, they go, well, how do you get 1/2 egg? Well, what you do is you're going to break your egg into a measuring cup. So you do 2 eggs first, and then that last egg, the third one, you break into a measuring cup. You look at it and see how much egg does that make, and then you beat it up and pour half of that into your mixture. So we mix this up, and it's looking good, but now we've got to doctor it up with the goodies. We got to get the good stuff in here. So we'll start with the rest of our almond paste. Remember that from earlier? Let's scrape it out. It's still wonderful in all its thick gooiness. I'm gonna put that in here. You do not have to use almond croissants for this recipe, but I like to do all the little extra flavor touches that really make it special and make it taste good. If you don't have almond croissants, your French toast is still going to be delicious, so don't worry. Okay, so we'll whip that in. If you don't have almond croissants, to put more almond extract, I use 2 teaspoons. I prefer the real stuff. This is the stuff with the alcohol in it, and that's okay too. And then we're going to add 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg. Nutmeg is a funny thing. It's very powerful. So look at that. I've got a lot in there. And you just want to be careful, because if there's one thing that could ruin any dish, it would be the nutmeg. And then last but not least, a little maple syrup. A lot of times people don't think about cooking with maple syrup because they're used to pouring it over their French toast. Well, I like to pour it in my French toast and over my French toast, because like fat, one can never have enough sweetness. The nice thing about maple syrup is that it's a healthy sweetener, not like white sugar. So pour it on. Okay, so we mix all this up, and we've got a great, flavorful egg batter. And we're going to set that aside before we put the croissant tops on, so that's the next step. Okay, we're back to the tops, and we're almost at the home stretch here. Now, cool thing about croissants is they're sort of layered like this, and I like to kind of flatten them and pull the layers out, because that gets me better coverage. So again, if you're using the almond croissants, you're going to have these wonderful sliced almonds and a little powdered sugar on there. Then you want to make sure you get one in each pan. And if you decide to go for the extra one on the side, you can kind of pick it apart and just place it in. This is going to be really funny looking when you first make it. The important thing is not that it looks attractive at this point. The important thing is that all of that filling that you put in gets covered. So you can smash them in the pan nicely. And if you have this kind of a situation here where you've got like crumbs left, don't worry about that. Just sprinkle those crumbs over the top. Because when we get the egg batter over this, this is all going to mix together, and it's going to sort of solidify and become one thing. So here's an example of what it's going to look like when you get it all in there. And the main thing to notice is that everything is covered. There's no orange marmalade mixture showing. And then the next step is going to be this batter that we made. We're going to pour that right over the top. I like to keep mixing it as I pour, because I really want to make sure that none of that almond stuff is stuck at the bottom. And the other thing is, watch it when you pour it, which is why I'm not looking at you right now, because you also want to make sure that you hit all the parts. And right after I pour it, I mash it down. And just look to make sure that I haven't put too much. You can tell if it's coming up on the sides really a lot, then you've put too much. It's really nice if you use a glass dish when you get to this part of it, because you can look at the bottom of the glass dish and see how much batter you have in. But, you know, then you have to pay the price by greasing and flouring that dish before you can get started. Last finishing touch is to just drizzle a little bit of this marmalade, apricot, orange juice mixture over the top. And this is going to look really gooey and ugly and kind of like, maybe like a kid's art project from first grade. That's really what it looks like. And that's how you know you did it correctly. Okay, so it's just a drizzle. So there we go. Sweet and gooey and messy and a mud pie. Maybe like a sand-colored mud pie. It's going to be really tasty when it comes out of the oven. So the beauty of this recipe is that you can soak it overnight. And if you don't have time to soak it overnight, you can still make it. You want to let it sit for a minimum of an hour, maximum of 24 hours. And at a place like our bed and breakfast where we're cooking for a lot of guests, we like to do all our prep the night before, let the flavors really seep in and get good and tasty. And then we come in the morning, just pop it in the oven, 350 degrees for 30 minutes, and you're all set. Okay, so my stuffed croissant French toast is out of the oven. I've cut a couple of slices and stacked them up nice and fancy here. And I've garnished with strawberries and blueberries. You can even add a few orange slices if that's to your taste. And the secret weapon that I love to use is the powdered sugar. Just sprinkle a little bit of that over the top and it covers up any imperfections you might have. And then when you serve it, you want to make sure you bring the real maple syrup to the table. That's just going to make it taste lovely.